Okay.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of the SUNY Online Teaching webinar series on online course quality. We're happy that you've joined us. Today we're looking at OER digital courseware that has been aligned to the OSCQR rubric. And last Wednesday we did a session on the OSCQR rubric itself. And so I'll be putting the recording to that in the chat. So anyone who may want to revisit that and learn more about that process can do so. I'm also joined by my colleagues Alexandra Pickett and Rob Pierakowski, and they are great contacts for the OSCQR rubric. If you have any questions about that, they'll be in the chat with me, and we can help you with any questions you might have. But today I'm going to turn over the reins to Tony DeFranco from SUNY OER Services, who's going to introduce a little bit about the work that they've been doing and some of our additional speakers. So, Tony?
Okay, thanks, Erin. Yes, I'm with SUNY OER Services. I'm the Director of User Support Services. So the OER Services operates as part of SUNY's Office of Library and Information Services. OER Services works directly with SUNY campuses and faculty to provide assistance and knowledge to support the adoption of OER and sustained use of OER as drivers of faculty choice and student success. Erin, I'm going to ask you to share our first link. This would be information about SUNY OER Services. This is oer.suny.edu. There you'll find a listing of our courses. You'll see examples of a number of the courses that are in the platforms that my colleagues will be talking about today. Me specifically, my role, I work with faculty and campuses on adopting OER and scaling OER initiatives. I've been an instructional designer. I've been around Erin and Alex and Rob and the whole gang, and probably many of you for a long time. And I'm a heavy user of the LMS as well as the related courseware that you're going to hear about today. Since the pandemic began, we've seen a significant increase in awareness, knowledge, and use of digital courseware, in particular the LMS. And my colleagues and I are here today to talk about how the use of Waymaker and OLI courseware are aligned with OSCQR, and that it takes a learner-centered approach and is designed to improve learning experiences. So considering this is part 2 of the online course quality series around OSCQR, and if you were fortunate enough to join us last week, Alex and Erin did a fantastic job explaining, giving some history and the background of OSCQR. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you know, if you're not familiar with it, maybe you've heard of it, you're not familiar with it, or you don't use it, you know, I'll provide just a very brief background. OSCQR SUNY's online course design rubric. It's an openly licensed process that addresses instructional design and accessibility of online courses. OSCQR is also prevalent in the design of OER courses that are developed in Lumen Learning's Waymaker and Carnegie Mellon University's OLI, or Open Learning Initiative platforms. These are 2 of the personalized learning platforms that are featured again in the Ready to Adopt catalog at oer.suny.edu. OSCQR is an online course design rubric and process containing 50 standards that addresses the instructional design and accessibility of an online course. It applies to both new and existing online courses. It's non-evaluative, which really makes it a positive professional development tool for online faculty, regardless of their level of online course development experience. And you know, when this whole thing was being developed, we were really looking for a tool that would do more than just identify deficiencies. We needed a tool that could provide substantive and positive suggestions on how to best approach each standard. It also needed to be effective in planning and prioritizing improvements to help with the online course update process. A mechanism was also needed to crowdsource additional suggestions and examples for each standard. We also wanted a tool that would allow us to recognize and bring together our community of online learning experts who can work together around online course quality assurance. And again, last week, Alex did a great job of providing some examples of some tools that would align with some of these standards. The first matrix you're seeing here is Waymaker. So both Waymaker and OLI use high quality, accessible, openly licensed content and high touch personalized learning tools. Both take a learner-centered design approach with the goal of improving learning experiences. These design approaches are closely aligned with research-based online effective practices, which is really at the core of the OSCQR rubric. And I'm just going to advance the slide so you can take a look at OLIs as well. And again, these are shared publicly Aaron, if you want to share those links, if you haven't already done so, that would be great. So again, they're really aligned with the core of the OSCQR rubric, which is based on effective online practices. These matrices show the alignment between the OSCQR standards and specific elements in both Waymaker and OLI. And these matrices are, again, publicly available. I know that the Waymaker matrix is available on the OSCQR community page, and OLI will soon be provided there as well. This session is going to demonstrate where in the process specific OER standards are addressed in both Waymaker and OLI courses. And I've got a couple of colleagues joining me today. Greg Bunye, who is a learning engineer with the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University, and Josh Barron, Lumen Learning's Executive Director for New York. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point and turn it over to Greg, who's going to kick us off and talk about the OLI matrix. Greg.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tony. Like Tony said, I'm a learning engineer, which is kind of our phrase for instructional designer at Carnegie Mellon. I'm actually a SUNY alum out of University at Buffalo. That's where I got my undergrad. And I'm a New York native. I'm here in Putnam County, New York, for downstate for those who don't know their counties. Let me share my screen. I think it's this one. Oh gosh, I don't know that. Sorry about that. I need to see my notes. There we go. Let's try this. Share screen. How's that? Can everyone see that? Nodding. Great. So this is actually Tony's presentation, so I'm gonna have to skip ahead a bit. You're getting a preview of Waymaker. Here we go, OLI. So I'm gonna run through sort of each category of OSCQR and touch on a couple of the things present in the rubric. I think we'll take questions at the end, but if you have questions, you can stick them in the chat. My colleague, Aaron Serwinski, is here, and Aaron, if you could monitor the chat, we can either address those questions on the fly or catch them at the end. This way. So you've seen the rubric. I'm not going to go through this in detail. First category, overview and information. Some of the rubric is talking about introductions and syllabi. So most of our big courses, these are the courses you would be more likely to adopt, will come with this welcome module that will not only introduce the topic area, but will introduce sort of some of the things students are going to encounter that are unique to an OI course, such as our custom activities and things of that nature. Learning objectives are usually rolled up to the top of each page, so long as there is learning taking place on that page, compared to something like a welcome page. And we have the ability to view the entire syllabus, which is sort of more of an outline of the entire course than it is the learning objectives. Learning objectives are more module specific. For technology and tools, we provide this system check, pretty easily accessible. It's a web page that describes some of the technology you're going to need to use to get through this course, such as an updated internet browser, and it would have said something like, you need Flash enabled, but we're sort of rolling that out. So that would be taken out of this, but there's that system check. And then OLI is, we do a fair amount of research. And so every time someone interacts with one of our assessments, we'll collect a little bit of data, but that is completely optional at no expense to the student experience. So if your student is not comfortable having their data collected, they can opt out and it will not affect them whatsoever. It just won't collect that data. And that is presented to you when you sign up for an OLI account.
Greg, just a quick question.
Yeah.
So if a student does opt in, do they have the ability to opt out at any time?
They do. And I think I could show that later, but I'm not sure I remember exactly how to do it. But yes, you can opt out at any time.
Right, thank you.
For design and layout, we provide a course outline. This is a page breakdown of the entire course. It'll say what unit, what module, and then all of the pages broken out. And this is easily accessible from the top of any course that you're going to be in. We also don't provide custom design for the pages. All of the fonts, all of the coloration, all of that kind of stuff is handled by us so that it can be more readable. So, you know, you don't even have the option of making white text on a yellow background, just to make sure that as much as it is accessible as possible. These are some more design and layout schemes. This is what we would call the syllabus page to the left here. This is breaking down not only the pages, but also quizzes, which we'll talk about in the assessments sort of section. And this is what a page would look like with the learning objectives at the top. This is sort of the intro to a module, but then you can imagine more content below, but the learning objectives are always pinned to the top so that students sort of see them first. For content and activities, one of our big advantages as a platform is our multiple forms of interaction. So here you're seeing two types of what we would call an inline activity, formative assessments for those that know the phrase. These are both drop downs, but there are lots of other types, you know, multiple choice, check all that apply. We have this sort of hotspot thing, which will put a whole image and you have to click on the right spot. And all of these provide immediate feedback when they're an inline activity. I can show off more activity types again in the sort of QA section. And then another thing to note for this section is that most of our content is openly licensed. And sometimes that is, we've developed it and just made it openly licensed, but there are also occasions where we have adopted other OER materials and turned it into courses. So something like an OpenStax textbook, or we do this with Pressbooks sometimes, where we'll take the whole course that's a textbook without any interaction and add interaction to it. But this way we're not rewriting everything. You know, we're big OER fans around here. For interaction, this is, you know, referring to more like interaction with the faculty member or teacher or whomever. We have this learning dashboard, and this is actually one of the learning dashboard views. We have a more common view I can show at the end. And this is breaking down for the faculty member or for the instructor how students are doing. So this is meant as the course is progressing, the faculty member can sort of address issues. They can see, okay, we're not doing so well as a class on this topic area, let's address that now. And then they also have, oh, did I just do this red squiggly line? Okay. And then there's also the ability to email students directly from within the dashboard, so you can see, oh, this student's not doing so well, let me send them a targeted email. I can also show off one of our more unique components, which is developed by a different Carnegie Mellon group called the Learning Technologies Institute. They have this Bazaar activity, which is really unique, really interesting. It's a conversational agent, so it's like a chat box, but there's an assignment and you're all sort of building information together. It's very, very interesting. I can show that off at the end also. And then the final section here, assessments and feedback. This is our wheelhouse. we have a lot of varying assessment types for inline assessments. Learn by doing is sort of it's like our ethos. So all of our main courses come with lots of inline activities of a variety of types. And then again, we have these checkpoints that would be a summative quiz. Those summative quiz due dates are present in the syllabus overview page, right from the beginning of the course. This is all custom scheduled by the instructor. And then again, visible to students right away. And then the instructor also has access to this grade book, which tracks overall progress of the students through a course. So it's less about, it's right and wrong for the summative assessments, less so for the formative assessments, but then it's also overall progress through the course. I think that's time for me, so I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Josh. Sorry if that was an information dump, but there's a lot to go through.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I'm going to share my screens and equally try to, do I have sharing permissions? Let's see. There we go. Thanks. So I'll try to go through quick so we have time for Q&A. One thing I'll note up front is you're going to see some similar kind of design and methodology approaches between Waymaker and OLI, because we've been partners and working together, and huge respect for the research Carnegie Mellon's been doing in this space for many decades. So we've benefited from that research here tremendously. Waymaker was developed through a next generation courseware challenge grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, began about 2013, 14, and then we've continued further development of it at Lumen over the last 4 or 5 years. It's heavy use along with OLI throughout the SUNY system and other places around the country. I won't go through, as Greg didn't either, this in great detail, because you have a link to it and can see this matrix and the alignment between OSCQR and the Waymaker design. When I was working on this my first kind of aha, or when I first began to put it together, I was really shocked by how close the alignment was, and then I kind of stepped back from it and realized that having worked with the OSCQR rubric before, I know there's a lot of research behind the rubric and the standards there, and it's the same research that actually is behind our approach, and I think OLI's approach to designing this courseware. And so it's kind of shouldn't be that surprising that there's a lot of alignments throughout. I'm going to take a minute or two here to highlight the first 4 standard categories and some slides, and then I'll wrap up quickly going in and showing a 1 or 2 quick live things, only because as I put this together, I realized that there's some things that I don't think can be communicated so well on the slide. So I'll do that here quickly. And then I also be able to dive in deeper on things where there's questions. I forgot start my timer here. So in terms of overview and information standards 1 through 10, there's kind of 2 categories I thought I'd highlight here: the faculty resources that come along with all the Waymaker courses, as well as the student orientation. And so we provide a full kind of overview of the course so faculty members and students can quickly see everything that's covered in every module. But I think more importantly, we then also provide the kind of cognitive as well as skill level based learning objectives that are part of the whole course. And I just took a quick snapshot of that. They can be sometimes a few hundreds of these because they go all the way down to the very kind of skill level. But I think having those complete set of learning objectives, which we work really hard to make sure are measurable learning objectives that are then associated with every page of content and every assessment item, it's really important to have up front and be able to see all those. And then similar to what I think Greg was showing, we have kind of a Succeeding with Waymaker module, which is really designed to be used right at the start of the semester, help students learn how to use the tools and benefit from them in terms of improving their own learning. And then part of that is the same kind of research consent that Greg mentioned, because we are collecting data when students opt in to share that data with us, and actually have an IRB through Carnegie Mellon and work Carnegie Mellon on some of that research. So I think actually the research informed consent we may have taken from Carnegie Mellon, so it may be very similar wording there. A couple other highlights here in the standard 11 through 15 on the technology tools. And I should mention that I'm not covering every single one of them that's in that matrix. So if you want a deeper dive, go to the Waymaker Oscar matrix there, and you can see a lot of others that I'm not going to highlight here just in the interest of time. So we have, full privacy policies that explain, how we treat data in general, and then also our learning data and so forth. Those are on our website, linked up in Waymaker. So all that's publicly available for people to see and have full transparency around. The other thing is we also release our VPATs publicly, and so those are linked off our website. And you can go, review those. Students can as well. So I think some cases, some vendors don't publicly publish those, and we put those right out there for everybody to see. It's something that we take very seriously, and I know OLI as well. Around accessibility, we put a lot of time and effort into making sure things are accessible. And we work closely with the SUNY Accessibility Office, Nasli over there, and actually recently co-presented with her on some stuff, or actually co-presented with Mike Daly about some work we're doing there. Probably a little bit more stuff here to cover, but I'll just highlight a few on the standard design and layout standards 16 through 28. Again, so I looked at this as huge close alignment between OSCQR and our design approach around Waymaker, again, because I think we're all basing this fundamentally on the same instructional design methodologies and research principles. So for example, we'll have a study plan in every module for the courses. You can think about this as kind of an interactive textbook content. And we do a lot of work to chunk that content in a way that really, is designed for students to be able to go through in a really standard sequenced way and in chunks that they can really digest, getting feedback throughout that whole process. And I'll show some of that feedback tools when I jump over to look at Blackboard here in just a moment. And I think particularly in today's world where people are flexing and moving online and back and forth, for faculty members who are new to teaching online, as I'm sure this group knows, having that structure for students online is really critical to the learning experience. And I think that's one of the values of both platforms, being able to kind of have that structure designed for faculties up front, but they give them that ability to customize those materials and make them their own. Maybe a little hard to see here, but we do a lot of work on the design of each content page as well, make sure they're very readable, lots of white space, put the headers and titles on tables and so forth, intersperse it with pictures and videos, a lot of interactives there as well, which I'll maybe show if we have time. I also thought I'd highlight that we do all the licensee attribution. If you're familiar with Creative Commons and OER licenses, you're legally required to attribute the licenses for all the materials you're using. So at the bottom of every page is a section there that lists all those. That also gives you a way of seeing exactly where all the content came from and how it's licensed. And then over here I have an image of the PowerPoint slides that come in with every Waymaker course, and I wanted to highlight that because we've actually invested recently a lot of time in not only making sure these are all a standard in the design of them, which I think is what the OSCQR standard speaks to, but I think even maybe more importantly, we've gone through and made them fully accessible. So we've added all the alt text to the images in the PowerPoint slides, so if students with screen readers are looking at the PowerPoint slides, they'll work for them as well. Again, excuse me, that matrix will give you a lot more, specific examples of the alignment between Waymaker and the OSCQR rubric in those categories. I'm now going to quickly shift over to Blackboard here. Waymaker integrates with all the major learning management systems, but I'll use Blackboard because I think that's maybe the more predominant one in SUNY. And so again, I'm going to skip over things, but just to highlight some of the more on the areas of assessment and interactions, the last two categories, I think I'll be easier to see how that is done here, doing a couple quick demonstrations. I've just jumped into our macroeconomics course. This is the supply and demand chapter or module. I should mention that everything here that you're seeing gets set up within about 2-3 minutes by just importing a file directly into your Blackboard or other LMS course site, and everything kind of magically gets set up there for you. Including things like discussions and assignments, which are native assignments in Blackboard. You can customize those, delete them, change them, edit them and so forth like you would any assignment there. I'm going to go into the study plan that I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is this kind of interactive chapter for the materials. And again, it's highly structured for the students, and this kind of get started, dive in, and then finish strong sections. And that standard kind of format is used throughout each study plan. Each study plan starts with this why it matters section, which was also, I think, part of kind of the standards. It really provides students with an example of what they're about to learn and how it's used in the real world, which is also part of engaging students and getting them interested in the materials. What I'm going to flash through here quick is to show what self-assessment or pre-assessment that the students do at the start of the module, and I'll do this as quick as I can. There's a few questions here. And, I think this is a great example of how we're providing this kind of personalized feedback to students through the courseware. Right now, as the students go through this, they're going to end up getting a little feedback at the end of this. You'll see in a minute of kind of how they, shouldn't have picked such a long one, sorry, kind of any prior knowledge they have coming into the course. They can get a sense of that. But more importantly, it's the data that's being collected here as they go through this is powering this kind of analytics engine behind the scenes, and it's going to start guiding them to places where they need to maybe focus more of their time because they have some weaknesses. And it also powers kind of a faculty dashboard. You can go to see what students are struggling in a course and then reach out to provide some extra assistance. And again, in the terms of the rubric standards around providing students with timely feedback and also building community and engagement with students, I think these tools really work very well to do that. Last question here. Look at that. I finished my comments up just as I got there. All right, so now we can see I didn't do so great because I was guessing here, but if we go through here, we can see it's giving students feedback on what I got right or wrong. I think more importantly, it's connecting these questions up to the units they're going to study next in this module, as well as the learning objectives that are associated with those standards. So I'm going to go back to the study plan here, and I'll wrap up here in a sec, but you can see that it's now color-coded, what I call content tiles. These are where the kind of meat of the content for this module are. And then since I did poorly, it's saying I need to focus equally on all 4 of these. If there was an area that I had some prior knowledge in, it might have just highlighted 3 of the areas to spend more time on and not the 4th one. I'll just quickly show content here because I want to show you that there's every page of content has a learning objective on it, and then you can also see here the layout, lots of white space, lots of step-by-step stuff, and then similar to what Greg was showing, lots of these self-assessments, ungraded activities where they can just check themselves. We're big fans of mastery learning, which is obviously a big focus of the OSCQR rubric as well. So students read a little bit and then immediately go and check themselves, make sure they're understanding those materials before they move on. We also have things like simulations that are built in so they can apply some of what they learned in a more of a real world scenario. I won't take time to go through that. And at the end of each one of these, again, very similar to OLI, there's a self-check at the end of each one of these content sections where they're going to, again, get some feedback on how they're doing and so forth. I won't take time to go through that this time for this one. And at the end, there's a summary of everything that they covered here, and then a graded quiz. By default, this quiz has 2 attempts. Again, they'll take a first attempt, they'll get more feedback from the platform, the system, and they'll take a second attempt, obviously with the goal of doing better. A couple other things here in the teacher view that you get in terms of data, but I won't go there unless there's questions, and I'll wrap up here by just showing the dashboard. Here's also the faculty resources where you get things like the test bank questions, PowerPoint slides. There's a fully offline version of the content digital textbook that students can keep. And actually, we're moving over to EPUB format because that's more accessible for students. Another good example of our focus on accessibility. So here, if I can get it to load up, because there's no fake data right now. This is an example of the dashboard where the students who are struggling in their course get identified again by that analytics. And if I go in here, I can see there's 3 students. We can see what learning objectives they're struggling on. We can go in and see more individual data. So here's Justin, he's doing the practice activities, but we can see that Justin only got 75 on his first quiz. So he's putting effort in. We can see that down here on the practice stuff he's doing, but he's not doing so well. So I might there want to come back can use the messaging tool in the dashboard to send out a quick message to Justin. You'll notice that it includes a learning objective where Justin is struggling. Again, it knows that because the coupling between every page of content tag with learning objectives, every assessment item tag with those. So it knows that Justin is struggling in a certain place because he's not doing doing well on those questions. So a big time saver. And so you can just send this message out, or you can customize it if you want to. But going back to both, this community building, engaging students, which I think is both part of the OSCQR rubric, but also something we're seeing a lot today with COVID and people moving online for the first time. A lot of faculty members seem to be wanting to find ways to further engage their students. And I think tools like this that allow you to quickly identify who needs help and then reach out to them in a personalized message is a very powerful way of doing that kind of engagement. So hopefully I was reasonably close to my time there, and I also didn't leave people with motion sickness going that quick through everything. So I think we can now take some questions here.
Josh, while we're waiting for questions, I just want to point out that I just posted in the chat. If you have any questions, you want to get more in-depth information, you want an overview, we're happy to provide that for you. It's OER at SUNY.edu. That will prompt a ticket to be created at the SUNY Online Help Desk. One of the things, Josh, you covered a lot of great information there. Both platforms are customizable, and one of the things I think it is a tremendous help is, as Josh did point out, is having that faculty dashboard and having that information emailed to you. It really acts as an automated teaching assistant. So, we're now looking at more online courses and remote courses and HighFlex, which we don't foresee going away for a very long time, if ever. It's a tremendous help for those particular formats.
And Tony, I did roll in just as we were starting, so you guys may have already covered this, but I always like to make sure people know there's no cost for SUNY faculty or students to use any of the courseware, either Lumens or OLIs. And I have to say hi to Alex Pickett because I haven't seen you in forever. So you're big on my screen there, so hi.
Not seeing any questions.
So if you would like, you can type in the chat a question. You can also unmute your microphone if you'd like to speak to any of the presenters and ask a question. My question, Tony, was going to be just that. How can they do a deeper dive in any of that content that was shared? So thanks for that. Question from Kevin. How is learner-to-learner interaction integrated into the system?
So for us, this might be a good time for me to show off the Bazaar system. The way a lot of our courses work or are commonly used is that, and this has probably changed a lot in the face of COVID. I'm not the most forefront. I'm sort of a behind the scenes guy. But the way a lot of our courses are used in practice is that they're sort of a flipped model where students would be doing the OLI course materials outside of classroom. And then in class, the instructor can look over the learning dashboard and sort of prepare interactive learner-to-learner situations for them to do in the classroom. Again, I imagine a ton of that has changed in the last year, and it is not the only way to use OLI courses. It is just a common one. But let me show you Bazaar. I'll probably have to reload it. This is one way you can get a learner-to-learner interaction virtually. Let me reload this. It's a little complex and I am not an expert on it. This is again developed by a different department, but is able to be integrated into an OLI course. This one is actually launching from our new system. Let me get a refresh here. Otherwise I might just have to let me boot it up again. Hello. Close.
While Greg's loading that up, I can speak a little to this. So with learner-to-learner interaction, we don't have things like a across the board all course discussion board like an LMS would. But what we do is in alignment with specific learning objectives and activities for a particular course, we can design activities that support learner-to-learner interaction. And this is what Bazaar is. It's one of those tools that as you need that kind of interaction in a course, we can add this in and design an activity where students are, in this case with Bazaar, working on something together and interacting and discussing a piece of either an activity or a document or whatever you would like or need them to work on together. And then it also, this particular activity has a chatbot agent that can be used as well to nudge or to nudge the conversation along or give hints or that sort of thing. So we do have the ability to integrate lots of different types of technologies into our base platform in alignment with particular learning objectives.
So this is a little awkward to show because I don't have other people collaborating with me right now. If I had, maybe I could have set that up. I don't know, maybe it would have been complicated. But so you can see Dr. ML is the chat bot, and Dr. ML is going to guide me through doing this assignment in the right hand side. And this is where, other students would be in the system at the same time. So we would all be chatbotting together. We don't need to have a video up, though I suppose that could be helpful. Some of the Bazaar tutors will actually try to be keeping track of the chat log and will change its interactions based on who's chatting more. It will, if I'm doing all the talking and Erin hasn't said a word yet, Dr. ML will ping Erin and say, hey, what do you think? There's a whole bunch of research about this that is super fascinating, and I am not qualified to really talk about. But then the idea is that we're building sort of a notes together, and my notes are highlighted in purple. As other people would show up, their notes would be highlighted in other colors. And we would, at the end, probably download this and submit it, or submit it through the system. I, again, can't quite remember the details of how all that works. And, this is some supplemental information that is relevant to this assignment today. So again, like Dr. ML is telling me, make sure you look at the horizontal and vertical tabs and to the left and decide on problematic features. Unfortunately, I have no idea what any of this means, but Dr. ML would guide me through that, and we would arrive at some notes and say, oh, this is a bad feature. And yeah, and then we would turn in sort of this collaborative hand-in document. So they're really interesting, really unique, this is really cutting edge stuff. And I'll even stick in the chat a link to the overarching project website.
I've actually not seen that yet, Greg, so that was cool. I see a lot of cognitive tutor stuff, especially around like physics and stuff, and it's going to be an amazing future as that stuff matures.
Oh yeah,
it's great tools for students. On the Waymaker side, we do have discussion, there's discussion forums. You may have seen that when I share my screen that come in with that course file you import, they get set up. So there are it will basically set up an LMS discussion forum for you with what we think might be good discussion, which you can edit and change. So I think it's more of a standard student-to-student interaction kind of thing. Some more maybe innovative stuff is we've started to introduce open pedagogy assignments into the Waymaker courses. So students in those cases are working mostly generally in teams to develop content for future runs of the course. And so they might get an area that they think needs to be better explained, and then they'll work in a team to do an H5P interactive or something along those lines. So that's maybe a more interesting kind of student-to-student interaction. And then some of it's course-based. And so like our Spanish 1 and 2 courses that we developed as part of our partnership with SUNY have some really interesting ones where, what you could do in the classroom or on Zoom, where students are prompted, they're kind of, the one I really like is they're security officers, they're in different security booths and the monitors are broken. And so one person has has to describe what they're seeing on the monitors to the other security person, of course, doing that in Spanish. And we give them very bizarre pictures like goats eating books and things like that. So they have to kind of figure out how to explain that. That could be done again, Zoom or the classroom, but I think that's maybe a more, again, innovative kind of student-student interaction approach. There was a question about our business model. I'll speak to Lumens, which we're partnered with OLI, so you guys can speak to your approach as well. But there's basically we just quit our jobs and we volunteer our time for free, and that's how we work. We just don't make any money. No, I'm joking. That's my mom always gets really worried about our business model at Lumen. So joking aside, we've worked really hard as the company launched to come up with a business model that is really digital first and is designed to lower costs while we improve student learning. And we do that by using openly licensed content, which both lowers costs but also allows us to do this kind of constant improving of content, which I think is part of many aspects of our efforts to then improve student learning ultimately as well. Outside of SUNY, around the country, it's $25 per student. That includes everything, the services that we provide for faculty support, as well as the content and the Waymaker tools. And then students, as I think I mentioned earlier, get to keep a digital copy of the textbook after the course forever with no additional cost. Through the partnership we have with the SUNY system, those costs are being covered through that partnership. But that's generally our business model, $25 per student. And we've designed that and have confidence that, that will allow us to sustain ourselves, long term without having to increase pricing.
Yeah, Aaron, if you could speak to our
I was
business
going
model,
to
because
say,
I know it a little bit, but
we have a very
we do
similar
better.
business model. We develop as much open educational resources as possible. For every course that we develop, we also put out an open and free version. Those versions don't have any summative assessments in them, so that when we use them in the academic sense, students can't go and get the answers from that and then use it in the academic setting. Our courses are very similar in terms of we charge $25 per student. That's negotiable depending on the institution and some other, and how big of a course it is essentially. But we also set some of that money aside for iterative improvement efforts, so that as authors of these courses want to look at the data and iterate on them and improve where, and add more scaffolding where students are showing that they need it, we can fund that effort to some extent with that bucket of money we set aside for that. So we too are just trying to keep the lights on and just get good quality materials out to learners.
Thank you. That's terrific. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. And so given the time, I'm just going to wrap us up real quick. And also to note, there have been, a lot of resources shared in the chat, and those will be added to the materials that will be on the same link as the recording. So I put that in the chat for you. You can get the recording of today's session, and also last week's session is already up on OSCQR. And in addition, there'll be a link there to materials from the session. So just drawing your attention to spring, and we have a series, our spring series lineup is there for you with some dates. Those will be added to the website shortly, and you can start registering for those as well. So hopefully you'll see some things of interest to you, and we look forward to seeing you at future events, certainly. And so I just want to thank Tony for facilitating, and Josh and Greg and Aaron for being here today and sharing these terrific resources. And again, if you are a SUNY campus, please reach out to OER services at oer.suny.edu, and they can get you connected to learn more or to find out more information. So we appreciate your attention and wish you well. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.